Alright, everybody, good morning, and welcome back to Ground of Aces. Real quick, make sure I turn on streamer mode here. I'm not sure what exactly that changes, but, yeah, I was going to have my own video playing in the background so I could do stuff with it, but okay, then. Alright. Well, we are back with Ground of Aces, and actually got the devs to reply on my last video that I did. They are going to be adding the Germans and possibly the Americans. Clue, as I found out in the between since last week, there are the German models already in the game. Unfortunately, they tend to be very, very angry with you. So, yeah, you don't look forward to seeing them. We also have here on the desk, I didn't really notice before, but we have a American-made B-17 in RAF paint scheme. So there's a chance that he should make an appearance here before too long. So, one thing of note that I wanted to point out that I noticed, if you start in the Litchfield map, that's actually a little more completed, as it were. Like, you actually have a little bit of a start sequence that shows you what's going on, and you have a lot more stuff already built, including a place for your pilots and ground crew to rest between their labors, i.e. a bathroom. This one does not have that. So, anyway. But that's the one we started with, so that's where we're going. Maybe. I might have to go back and fix that. Because I've noticed it says Litchfield sometimes when it says the other one. If it's green, I went to the wrong map and I'm going to have to go back. Whoopsies. Okay. Alright, nope. This looks like my map. So, a couple things have changed. I have a couple of new fighters. If you are one of the pre-backers, you get this skin on your little gladiators here. Pick one or the other. Can't use one plane and then change it. But one of my goals is to get a couple of these bow fighters here. So, get some heavier aircraft. But, anyway, while the night is dark and everyone's sleeping, we'll show you around the base a little bit. Cut down a bunch more trees. Nice thing, I figured out how to expand the runway. Nice thing is, this is all already sand, and sand is needed for a tier 2 runway. So I literally just have to extend this out a little bit and fill in the blanks as needed. One thing I have to be careful about, though, is it seems that aircraft like to go to the north end of the runway to start their takeoff run, not the south end, which is closer. So anyone that wants to take off has to go and I extend this thing all the way up here. They're going to drive all the way up here, or taxi, as they call it. The term taxi actually came from, like a lot of aviation stuff, the French. Because tail draggers have very interesting handling characteristics on the ground, new pilots would spend a bit of their early training just literally taxiing the plane up and down, up and down. And a lot of civilians observing it remarked that it looked like the taxis that were driving around Paris. Ooh, I got a delivery. So that's how it got its name. Taxiing from French people and taxis. This here is what I've been waiting for. So, if you go into your kind of HQ map here, you could pick what you want them to ship you. And I really want some anti-air guns. I'm going to need to fulfill a few more missions before they'll let me order another one. But each one of these takes up 3 slots. So if you want to get more, you're going to have to upgrade. So it looks like I'm going to need a tier 2 runway and another runway at that. So probably build that other runway over here. It's not like I don't have the room. Or should I do a crossing runway? Yeah, maybe I'll do that. But anyway, let's go ahead and set this guy up here. Let's see. And Cozy looks lonely. Give him some sandbags to keep him company. One thing I have picked up on is even though keeping them in the shelter will keep your supplies together longer, they still will decay. So you're gonna need a dump. So that's just areas, storage, select that, and then trash. So any bad stuff that yeah. They'll just take that, drop it there, and then it'll just eventually break down into nothingness. Alright, let's go ahead and order a bunch of bricks. Because one of the things I want to start doing this stream is A, get my upgraded runway going, and B, start getting this installation up and running. Because, I mean, they already gave me a lot of walls and stuff. It'd be kind of, well, rude not to take advantage of it. I did figure out how to bust them down, by the way. Instead, if you have ruins on your map and you don't want those ruins, you need to actually use the destroy tag on them. Because if you use harvest, they won't do anything. Quick scan over to cliffs here. Little lone tree. Yeah, because we got this building here. I'm probably going to tear that down here in a minute. Or sometime at least. Mushrooms and beans. They haven't. I've told them to tear down some of this stuff. They have not gotten to do that yet. So I think that a lot of it's based on how many people you have and what they have to do for the time. I've noticed that when in the morning, once they start work, they will prioritize whatever task they had that's the closest. Oh, is this thing finished? Oh, sweet. So let's get this AA gun up and running. By the way, I have no idea as far as coverage goes for right now. What that might entail. So I don't know if it's only a 40 millimeter. So, granted, you don't want to get shot in the face by a 40 millimeter. Let's see. So the Bofors, Bofors is a Swedish company. Oh, mission. Let's see here. Go ahead and send this fellow. Actually, you know what? This looks like I got it. Let's call in the Beaufighter, shall we? And then I'll talk about the Bofors a little bit. So Beaufighter is a heavy fighter. One of the problems that they ran into in early aircraft development was that while fighters were generally faster through a lot of ranges, when you got up to high altitude, a little bit of a tight fit fellow there. Okay. Two engines are really better than one. And the stockier airframes of the bombers didn't matter so much with the lower air resistance. So, let's see. No, I don't want actually not him. No, I guess it is him. Help me, Neo Coulthard. You are my only hope. So, not only would the fighters struggle to get up to altitude to where they could actually engage the bombers, once they got up there, they were often much slower. Get started on a actual physical barracks here. One of hopefully a few. Almost ready for a competition run. Wish us luck. Well, good luck, you biplane man. Good luck, biplane man. Didn't win, showed great effort. Probably put that as a net start of another barracks down there as well. Got plenty of room here. Oh. And let's see. Actually, I will select only those with mustaches to man this gun. That's something interesting that I'm going to have to deal with. The more guns I have, the more mustaches I will need to crew them. Anyway, before I go and talk about the Beaufighter. Actually, no, well, I'm still on the Beaufighter. So yeah, higher altitude, especially with non-charged engines, where they don't have a supercharger or turbocharger. The single-engine fighters really started struggling. Even if they could get to the bombers, too slow to actually catch up or engage them. So, simple solution, add another engine. Came with the advantages of more power. So you can go faster, reach higher altitudes at speed. Also larger aircraft because, you can't, where are you going to put another engine on that thing? Please tell me if you do figure that out. So bigger airframe, more fuel, more range. You had the option of putting another gunner in, in case, because sometimes the enemy's behind you, and you don't like that. So, I don't know what just happened right there. But anyway, they also had the ability to carry ordnance of various kinds. The Beaufighter itself could actually carry either bombs, torpedoes, or various other things. So, yeah, pretty decent engine. Aircraft used Hercules radial engines here. They were about popular. You could do about 320 miles per hour. Not bad, not bad. It was non-pressurized, so you had to bring your own air. But it could do about 1,900 feet. Not bad. Very heavily armed, though. Very heavily armed. 4 20mm Hispano cannons. So, yeah, that would ruin your day right there if one of those hit you. And obviously 4 of them. Also, 6 of the infamous 303 machine guns. So. Also carry rockets, bombs, torpedoes, angry, wild-haired people, you know, anything you might want to drop out of an aircraft, as long as it wasn't too big. Couldn't really do that with your smaller gladiators, but let's see, have a bunch of planks. So, dun, dun, dun. One aircraft I'm not happy to be seeing missing here. I'm hoping they added in later. Oh crap, they did add the B-17. I did not see you there, fella. Nice, nice. Yeah, B-17 Flying Fortress was one of the aircraft that was sent over via Lend-Lease. So basically, America was lending the British a bunch of military equipment, including all the destroyers we built for World War I that we never ended up using. One ended up in a rather spectacular end as part of a raid. So that's something I might talk about later. Doesn't really fit in with this game, but you know, it was a pretty epic raid. They also, as the one of the biggest mistakes I will say that Britain made in the interwar period is they had given the control of the Fleet Air Arm to the RAF. So the RAF was in charge of both ground-based and naval aircraft. And they almost completely neglected the Naval Air Arm, the naval service. So that really hurt them in the early stages of the war, because the carrier aircraft they couldn't compete at all with anything the Germans or the Italians had. Good coffee. So later, when the U.S. started supplying Britain with equipment, one of the things we had sent them was naval aircraft. First of them was the F-4F Wildcat, which became known as the Martlet in British service for strange and unknowable reasons. If anyone knows why the British chose to call it the Martlet, please let me know. I promise I will pay attention. Pinky promise. And also, they also got Dauntless. I believe they got Dauntless and Avenger bombers as well, or at least the Devastators. Considering that up till that point, while the Devastator was an outdated aircraft by pretty much America's entry into the war, wasn't really able to compete with everything out there. It was far better than the Swordfish biplanes that the Royal Navy had been using up to the point, as I'm sure they will agree. They also ended up along with the American Marine Corps, they ended up getting most of the Corsairs, at least initially. The Corsair, because of the interesting shape of its wing and the fact that the giant, absolutely massive propeller they had on that thing meant the nose was huge. It was a little tricky to land at first on a carrier. I mean, tricky to land on a regular runway too. But until we figured out how to land a thing easily, they're like, we're going to stick with the F6, the Hellcats, and you guys could use the Corsairs. Which is, I mean, Corsair was a wonderful, wonderful aircraft. British pilots actually came up with how to land it on a carrier. You basically do kind of a spiral in, keeping the carrier the flight deck kind of in the crook between the nose and the wing, then just do a little bit of side slip in, and then once you're committed to final, straighten out and touch down. It makes more sense if you actually know a bit of flying. So, and spoiler alert, if someone knows a bit of flying, you will find out quickly. We literally are incapable of shutting up about it. So, get that built. Get the, when picking up planks, Gordon Gallagher slipped and accidentally destroyed it. Wow, that takes effort. It'd be funny if it wasn't so sad. Let's throw in some more windows here. Anyway, we're back over to a Bofors. So Bofors is a Swedish company that in the 1930s probably made one of the best contributions to the field of people on the ground not liking what's in the air. The 40mm anti-aircraft gun. So here we have a single barreled variant. They went up to a 4-barrel setup, which could get pretty spicy if you were on the other end of that barrel, wrong end of that barrel. But yes, fired a 40mm explosive shell that was altogether very good at taking out enemy aircraft. So, had a range of about 24,000 feet. So, obviously, the higher the plane, the more difficult it was to hit it, because you'd be dealing with a bit of shorter range, but still, could reach out and, if someone's bombing you or strafing your airfield, this is a good gun to have. The U.S. Navy, after Pearl Harbor, adopted with both the 40mm or Bofors and the 20mm Oerlikon, adopted the mantra of a cat that's feeling particularly lazy. If it fits, it sits. So anywhere there was room for one of these things, or the smaller 20mm variant, you would typically find one getting installed. As a bit of an aside, HMS Victorious found herself in service with the U.S. Navy for a time period following one of the battles off Guadalcanal and due to the damage to Enterprise and the loss of Hornet. So, the fact that someone was able to actually knock Enterprise out of action at all was a bit of a issue for us. So we asked the Royal Navy if we could borrow one of their carriers, and they were kind enough to lend us Victorious. So, among various things, when we got our hands on her, we took her into shipyard, bolted a big platform on the back, and filled it with 20mm Oerlikons. Because if it isn't covered in guns, is it not even an American ship? Also, we added an ice cream maker. The British were very happy about that. So much so, in fact, that when it came time for Victorious to leave American service, while they gave all the guns back, they kept the ice cream machine. I'd have a second bed, some of these beds set up by the time the sun goes down. That's what I'll need, a mess hall. So do a second barracks here, mess hall down here, headquarters here, and a bit of a workshop over here. So what's everyone thinking so far on my various aerial and war-related rantings and the game itself? I honestly don't feel it's a bad game. I'm having a bit of fun with it. It's nice. I kind of like base building. I wish it did a better job at explaining some things. But all in all, it's not the worst. Get rid of these fences in the morning. Because I think I need to build it inside. Yep. Oh, because it doesn't have a floor yet. It doesn't count as indoors. Okay, well. let's see. Make sure I get some tarps. Those will be useful. Probably won't end up wanting some machinery too at some point. So you got plenty of metal. Although once I actually start getting a proper hanger going, I'm going to need more. Yeah, hangars are very expensive as far as metal goes, but to protect your more important aircraft, they are quite necessary. There we go. Just get the walls up right now. I actually think I'll set up the tarps workbench. In here for now. Just because that does count as indoors. One thing to take of note, they will not start a production order if you order too much. They won't start a production order until you have everything you need already in inventory. So, like, I need 3 more sandbags and 2 things of water. So they won't start actually making that big order of bricks until I have that. So they won't just make as much as, unless you order a continuous thing, like produce till it has 100. They won't have where is that talking? Oh, that was the radio. Okay. I think that sounded kind of like Winston Churchill, although it could be hard to tell. Some British voices, especially on those old style radios. So yeah, In general, it also goes for continuous. Like, see, I need one more plank, one more log to start. And they absolutely will not do anything until I have that. Yeah, once you start getting your improved aircraft, you should probably balance out the rate that you get them with the rate that you have hangars for them. Just because they will degrade. I don't think integrity can. Integrity seems like it can be repaired, but you know, go through parts a little bit faster that way. Really wish you could do some classical period music in this. Really kind of like the jauntiness. Do little taxiways there. Canning station makes bombs. Cool. Yay, successful missions. Oh, oh. That's why it's not doing anything. I need clay. Oh. That feels silly now. That would certainly explain why I'm not producing any bricks. So having gone from struggling to keep my morale in the green to send these guys back out, they could use some more experience. Actually doing fairly well for myself. So one thing I've learned about this game is if you're going to upgrade a runway, you better have another runway already built. As while a runway is being improved, enlarged, or otherwise upgraded, it counts as being unusable. So if I were to go and say, widen this one out about 2 or 3 more meters to qualify for a tier 2 as far as width. Yeah, no, those biplanes are kind of screwed. And not in a fun carpentry has been done way. Huh. Wonder what you're doing there, just standing around. Well, part of me is hoping that the Germans show up at some point so I actually get to use said Bofors. But part of me is also like, you know, they're probably going to show up in like the worst possible place and strafe like over here And the gun just can't even reach them. When digging for clay, Leslie Reese found some very annoyed ants. Time to run. Yeah, no, ants, you disturb ants when they're doing their ant thing, and you dig them up. It gets awkward real fast. Yep, there we go. Go ahead and replace that with a hurricane. Once he's airborne and all out of here. Kind of surprised to see the Hurricane rated so low. This is only a Tier 1 plane. They were a very good aircraft. Very capable. Also a user of the infamous Rolls-Royce Merlin engine. So with, in at least one configuration, mounted 4 20mm cannons. And while not as flashy as a Spitfire, definitely did a lot of work during the Battle of Britain period. So, would not be at all amiss for me to have several Hurricanes here at any stage of this game. Something like 60% of Luftwaffe shoot downs of the Luftwaffe were by Hurricanes. So, definitely not a plane to mess with. And one that really does not get that much love. One aircraft that I'm actually surprised has not yet made an appearance in this game. The de Havilland Mosquito. Definitely would not be surprised to see it show up at some point. They were very popular aircraft. Interestingly enough, in an era where aluminum or doped fabric skin was becoming a thing, with the metal skeleton of the plane, the Mosquito was majority plywood. So, ended up being a very light, very fast aircraft, especially because it mounted 2 Merlin engines in it. One of the reasons why the Merlin became such a popular engine is because it was used in literally everything. The Brits love the thing. The Americans love the thing. Okay then. Did not get the shoot down of a German plane. That I wanted. But it also appears they strafed Billy. So I will need to order another pilot. Because currently the Beaufighter is down. Oh, that was a neat touch there. One they didn't really have to do, but the, if you missed it, the Hurricane retracted its landing gear as it took off. Back to the Mosquito. I actually got a chance to see one in flight. Oh, Jesus. You guys better pick him up and dust him off there. You guys better get him for Billy. Okay, good, good, good. Oh, now that is appropriate right there. If you get it, you get it. Makes me wonder if these guys level up their skills and repairs and whatnot. Oh good, High Command is actually happy with me for That is just lovely to hear. Let's make sure we have some repair parts and some fuel sent over. Yep. Now we play the waiting game. Although while I play it, just leave it at dirt for now, because then they'll start building it. And then, once I get all that cleared out, then we can sand it. This will also let me upgrade my current runway a little bit. Yeah, because there's a lot of rocks that they're going to have to clear out here. Yeah, that should make it sand from the start, actually. You know, I have straight up never seen where to find herbs. Be nice if there was a little glossary or something that told you where everything, what everything was, you know, like, oh, this is what a wild tomato plant looks like. Or this is where you find herbs. It's slowly being built. Probably extend it to here instead of cutting it off right there. My little victory garden isn't doing well. Kind of surprised they don't have us growing carrots in there. Carrots are once again one of those things that if you know, you know, as far as aviation history goes. But at least my troops have a bit of a varied diet, you know. Probably lacking meat. Shame there isn't a way to fish. Got all this free water here. Sure, there's a fish or two down there. It would be a nice little detail if you could actually designate taxiways as well that the planes will take. That lets them move faster to the runway, because if you have it set up like, eventually if this extends all the way up here, but I still want my planes parked down here because, that way the pilots can actually get to them, then I could have like they get a bonus to the taxiway, like if I have it as actual concrete or whatnot. And they'll just move faster in general. That would be cool. Oh yeah, I should probably set one of those up at some point. Alright, since it's in 2 days actually, let me go ahead and adjust. I don't really need bricks so much, as I could use some luxury goods and build some useful things in my barracks and headquarters. One other thing I would like to see is like some way to increase the op tempo, like put your planes on missions a bit more frequently. Like say, hey, here's some planes standing by for countering bombing raids. And the planes are just up there, and then you're like, oh, a bombing raid's coming in. They all take off automatically. But you can't use them for anything else. I think that would be pretty nice to see. Because, I mean, despite there being a actual war on, it's all been mostly casual. Sorry, fella. I think I'll build the next egg and I'm gonna set it up here. And one down here. Another neat thing that I would like to see is a staging area. Like, say I pick my 2 gladiators. One taxis to the end of the runway to get ready for takeoff, and I establish a staging area down here, so the other immediately moves to follow it before it even gets onto the runway. So you have Gladiator 1 goes to runway, Gladiator 2 goes to staging area. And as soon as the runway's clear, Gladiator 2 immediately moves onto the runway and takes off. Instead of it waiting for sitting down here at its parking location until Gladiator 1 fully takes off. That would be cool. Another neat thing would be if, say, you had a Tier 2 runway, 2 Tier 1 planes could take off at the same time. Like, basically, if then if you had a Tier 3 runway, you had 3 planes that could take off at the same time. Yeah. That way, in theory, like maybe, but in order to have like a pair of Tier 2 planes, you need like a Tier 4 runway. You know, you need something bigger, or you can have, or it's like only one up. You know, a pair of Tier 2 planes could take off from a Tier 3 runway, but 3 Tier 1 planes could take off from a Tier 3 runway. It's just interesting thoughts, you know. None of the devs watched my last stream, so if they end up watching this one again, just some shower thoughts for you fellas. Generally, there's a lot of good that I've seen in this game. I'm wondering if when I build the intel stuff, then I get like a little bit of more warning, so my ground teams can get to safety and I can get them AA guns up and running. good. We're finally getting some more beds up and going. So what I'll probably do is some more beds in here, and then do a little common room in here. You know, have a radio, some booze, some chairs, maybe a table. This one will probably be a bit bigger. But yeah, once you've actually got your base somewhat established with people, considering the fact that ordering more people or ordering more aircraft that's not a Gladiator costs you victory points, and you get victory points so sparingly. It'd be nice to see a little more higher pace going on early game, or some other things you could do to gain victory points, like say completing objectives. I build a fuel tank, I get a victory point. I get to run by, I get a victory point. I get victory points, I get victory points. Yeah. That would really help things out. You know, increase the, because yeah, early game you struggle a bit for pacing. I mean, we had Mr. Fitzgerald here, died a couple days ago. And I'm only a little bit closer to his replacement with no missions. It's a touch frustrating. And then it's like, right now it seems to be 4 victory points a week. Hopefully pace increases, because it's like, when I get up to these higher tiers, I mean, think about having a B-17 get knocked out on the ground or something, because I have seen that happen in one of my other games. Not a B-17 per se, because they just added that thing in, but still, you lose a B-17, it'll be a month before you can get another one, especially because you can only store 12 victory points. And some way to kind of speed things up in here, definitely. Goes along happy my taxiway is actually going along. Like, if you're doing a runway, they do a 3x3. Why are they only doing like a 1 block at square at a time here? Yeah, still my, other than some of the stuff I mentioned, like the staging areas, the speed bonus on taxiways. I think one of the big things I'd like is a way to set the priority of something. You know, like, I really want this barracks here finished. Or I really want them to start taking down these things. I'd be like, yeah, taking down these things is the top priority. And then they go do it. They focus that. Yeah, I don't even need you to guys go get those tomatoes. Anymore. I certainly have my fair share. Or I need these rocks cleaned off the runway. Because they're going to be doing that for the next week. By the way, I do kind of appreciate the little attention to detail bits. Like, these mission succeeded stamps aren't perfectly center, like someone's actively stamping them. That is cool. I like that. I like to see that. Oh yeah, you guys are running to sleep. Never mind. I thought there was an alert. Well, anyway, I am going to, as I got some podcasts later today, I am going to call it here. Once again, I will most likely play around with these in my off time. So, who knows? I might have my second barracks built. I'll probably wait to work on the headquarters till my next stream. But, yeah, you'll likely see the Beaufighter's hangar already built. Maybe I'll have a pilot for it by that point, depending on how many missions I get. And runway 2 will be completed. Possibly, maybe, hopefully. Don't hold your breath. Anyway, this is Abyssal Tech with Ground of Aces. Having fun with this game. And I will catch everyone later. Peace out.